Elias Vorn adjusted the strap of his leather satchel and glanced around the crowded spaceport. Ships of every shape and color were docked in the sprawling terminal, their engines still humming faintly. Humans were a minority here, scattered among aliens whose appearances were as diverse as the stars themselves. Some had translucent skin, others elongated limbs, and a few seemed almost crystalline. Elias had grown used to it over years of travel, yet he never stopped marveling at the sheer variety of life in the galaxy. His attention, however, was drawn to one figure who stood out from all the rest. She moved with a grace that seemed effortless, her long limbs flowing like liquid as she navigated through the crowd. Her skin shimmered with a soft metallic sheen, catching the light from the overhead panels, and her eyes were deep pools of violet, sharp and intelligent. She wore a dress of woven fabric that seemed to shift colors subtly, from deep indigo to soft gold, depending on the angle of view. Elias' breath caught, and he realized he had been staring. "She's not just beautiful," he murmured to himself. "There's something about her." A small smile played on her lips, one that suggested both amusement and curiosity. Elias swallowed hard, suddenly aware that he was standing a little too openly, a little too obviously captivated. But the smile wasn't fleeting, it lingered, and the woman moved toward him. "Captain Vorn," a voice called from behind him. It was his assistant, Myra, waving frantically. "Your shuttle leaves in an hour, you should." "You are human," she said in melodic tones, her voice smooth yet firm. "And you are far from home." "You look beautiful in that dress," he said, not knowing if he would regret the words immediately after he said them. Lyra's smile widened, and for a moment, Elias thought he saw genuine amusement flash across her face. Then, unexpectedly, she moved closer and pressed a small device against the wall beside the terminal's observation window. With a soft click, a panel slid down and the door between them sealed. Elias blinked. "You locked the door," he said, surprised. "I did," Lyra said, her voice calm but not unkind. "You are here now in private. It is a test. We shall see if your mind is worthy of what lies beyond this door." She gestured to the small room around them. It was a nondescript space at first glance, with metal walls and a faint hum of machinery. Then the walls shifted, revealing holographic panels and displays that seemed to float in the air. The floor beneath them glowed with faint geometric patterns. Elias took a cautious step forward. "This isn't just a test of courage, is it?" Shapes shifted, forming complex patterns and symbols that he had never seen before. One projected a map of distant star systems, another displayed figures moving like living equations. "So, you want me to solve something? Are you willing to try?" "They represent ideas, actions, and consequences. Your task is to organize them into a pattern that makes sense. To an alien mind, logic may differ, but reasoning must be universal." Slowly, he began moving them into sequences, noticing relationships between symbols, patterns that repeated, and sequences that seemed incomplete. Lyra observed silently, her eyes sharp and precise. "Interesting," she murmured. "You do not rely solely on calculation. You consider the relationships, the context." "That is human." He had to decide how to reorganize its defenses, not just with technology, but with strategy and leadership. "Humans value life, yes?" Lyra asked quietly. Elias hesitated, then nodded. "We do. Even if the odds seem against us, we try to find a solution that preserves as much as possible." "You learned?" Elias discovered that human reasoning was different from alien reasoning. It was flexible, sometimes unpredictable, and capable of finding paths others might never consider. Lyra remained by his side, silent for long stretches, yet always present. Sometimes she offered hints, sometimes merely watched. Elias realized that the test was not just for him, but for her as well. She was measuring how a human mind could confront problems alien to its understanding. Finally, the room settled into silence. The cubes and projections vanished, leaving only the faint hum of the chamber. Lyra turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You have done well," she said. "Few of my people would approach the challenges as you did. You think in ways that are uniquely human." The locked door no longer seemed threatening. It felt like a gateway, an opportunity. "And after the final assessment?" he asked. Lyra's eyes twinkled. "Then you shall see whether humans are worthy of the knowledge we guard, whether you can help protect it or merely admire it from afar." And in this moment, standing in a chamber far from home, surrounded by alien technology that defied comprehension, he felt a surge of pride. Humans might be young in the galaxy, but they were resilient, inventive, and unafraid to face the unknown. As he looked at Lyra, he realized something else. The smile she had given him at the start, the one that had seemed almost casual, was now loaded with meaning. It was respect, curiosity, perhaps even hope. Elias settled against a smooth panel, taking a moment to breathe. The spaceport beyond the chamber was distant, a world of noise and chaos that now seemed small. Here in this room, everything felt purposeful. Every challenge, every puzzle, every subtle test had been designed not to intimidate, but to measure. And humans, he thought, were not easily measured. Hours could have passed, or maybe only moments. Time was strange here, warped by the chamber's shifting fields. Elias focused on what he could control: his mind, his choices, and his determination to succeed. Every instinct, every experience, every lesson he had learned as a human traveler in the galaxy had prepared him for this. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "Rest if you must, Captain Vorn. The final trial will come soon, and when it does, you will need all of your faculties." Elias closed his eyes briefly, letting himself imagine the possibilities ahead. Whatever lay beyond this room, he knew one thing for certain. Humans had a way of surprising even the most advanced beings in the galaxy, and he intended to prove it. When he opened his eyes again, Lyra was watching him, her smile quiet but assured. The door remained locked, yet he no longer felt trapped. He felt challenged, intrigued, and more alive than he had in years of travel. And somewhere deep within him, a spark of excitement flared. The real journey was just beginning. The chamber hummed softly, a quiet energy that seemed to pulse through the walls. Elias had not slept, nor had he tried, for he was too aware that every moment in this room was a chance to understand more, to learn, to prove himself. The first trials had been strange, intriguing, and demanding, but this next stage, he sensed, would test more than his mind. It would test his perception, his morality, and his ability to act under pressure. Lyra stepped closer, her movements as smooth and fluid as ever. "Captain Vorn, the next stage begins now," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It is not enough to solve puzzles. You must understand the consequences of your actions. You must act." His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from a thrill that only came when faced with a challenge that truly mattered. "I am ready," he said. The walls of the chamber shimmered, and suddenly the floor beneath him dissolved into a holographic landscape. Elias found himself standing on a wide plain, green and vibrant, with a river snaking through it. Towering structures loomed in the distance, clearly the buildings of an alien civilization, though their design was unlike anything he had seen. Smooth, spiraling towers rose into the sky, connected by bridges of light, while smaller structures seemed to float slightly above the ground. "This is a simulation," Lyra's voice echoed, though her form remained in the chamber. "Here you will face scenarios that require judgment, not calculation. Your choices will affect not only outcomes but lives. Observe carefully." Small holographic aliens, each one carefully animated, going about tasks like tending gardens, transporting materials, or interacting with each other. He realized almost immediately that these were not just random images. They were representations of an entire society, and the decisions he made could affect their survival. A warning flashed before him, projected into the air. "A natural disaster approaches. You must act." The first thing to do, he decided, was to understand the terrain. He walked closer to the river's edge, analyzing how the water spread. Then he moved toward the buildings, observing which areas were most vulnerable. Humans often acted quickly in crises, relying on both instinct and reason. This was one of those moments. He began directing the simulated citizens. "Move the structure's most valuable elements to higher ground," he called, projecting instructions through the simulation's interface. "Lead the people to safe zones near the bridges." You act instinctively while planning. At one point, a cluster of citizens was trapped on a floating platform that was about to be swept away by the swelling river. Elias paused, calculating, then acted. He reached into the interface, extending a bridge of light that connected the platform to higher ground. The citizens moved quickly, following the path he created. The floodwaters swept past harmlessly. Elias exhaled. Humans often succeeded by thinking creatively, and this was a perfect example. The sky darkened further, and Elias saw clouds moving in unusual formations, an impending storm unlike anything he had encountered. The simulation was testing not just his problem-solving, but his ability to remain calm under pressure. He took a deep breath and continued to organize rescue efforts. "This is impressive," Lyra said, finally appearing in the simulation as a faint holographic form beside him. You do not act out of self-interest. You consider the consequences for all. You value life and understanding above speed or efficiency. I need to help everyone. Holographic citizens called for help from different directions. Elias felt the weight of responsibility but refused to panic. Humans thrived under pressure. That was part of what Lyra was testing. He ran from one crisis to another, creating solutions that relied on his understanding of human behavior. Where the fires spread, he constructed barriers and guided citizens to safe zones. Where the flood threatened, he reinforced structures and led the inhabitants to higher ground. Each choice required rapid assessment, moral judgment, and quick action. Lyra watched, impressed. You do not rely on brute strength or technology alone. You use creativity, empathy, and foresight. Few beings in this galaxy could manage this. The simulation was relentless, presenting new challenges without pause. But humans, he realized, had a unique ability to adapt. They learned quickly, observed carefully, and acted decisively. That combination was rare, even among advanced species. Finally, the storm began to subside, and the landscape returned to a semblance of calm. The citizens had survived, and the structures were mostly intact. Elias breathed heavily, feeling the strain of focus, decision-making, and leadership. But more than fatigue, he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had faced a crisis and acted with both courage and wisdom. Lyra approached him, her eyes filled with admiration. You have done more than I expected, she said. You demonstrate qualities that are uniquely human. Your creativity, your courage, your ability to act morally under pressure, these are traits that even my people often lack. The final stages will challenge not only your mind and morality, but your very perception of reality. You will face choices that cannot be measured simply by success or failure. The outcome will depend on judgment, intuition, and your ability to work with others. He realized that humans had a way of navigating situations that others could not predict, combining creativity with morality, reasoning with instinct. That might be why Lyra had singled him out. You believe in humans, he said quietly, even when faced with tests designed by beings far more advanced than us. Humans endure, adapt, and overcome. You are unpredictable yet capable. That combination is valuable, rare, and necessary. It is why you are here. Even in a galaxy filled with advanced civilizations, humans had something unique, the ability to surprise, to act morally, and to solve problems creatively under pressure. Lyra approached him fully this time, her presence solid and commanding. Captain Vorn, you have passed this stage. You have proven your ability to act decisively, morally, and creatively. Few could have achieved what you did. But the final stage awaits. It is not yet time to celebrate. Humans have always been underestimated, Captain Vorn. This will be another opportunity to show why that is a mistake. The chamber was strange, the tests alien, but the essence of the trial remained the same: observation, decision, action, and morality. As he prepared for the next stage, he felt a quiet sense of pride. Humans were young in the galaxy, but they were resilient. They could adapt, think creatively, and act with courage. And in moments like these, standing before challenges no one else could face, they could shine in ways that even the most advanced civilizations could not anticipate. Lyra watched him for a long moment, then stepped back, allowing the chamber to dim. Rest if you can, Captain Vorn. The final stage will begin soon. And when it does, every decision, every instinct, and every choice you make will matter. Do not underestimate the importance of what you have learned here, or what you will face. Each had been a test, and each had revealed something profound. Humans, when confronted with challenge, could rise to meet it in ways no one expected. And now, he thought with a steady heartbeat, it was time to see just how far that ability could take him. The chamber was silent, though a quiet hum vibrated beneath Elias' feet. The walls shimmered faintly, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and metal. Elias stood in the center, alert, aware that the next stage would be different. This was no longer a simple puzzle or a crisis simulation. Lyra's expression hinted that he would face something deeper, more profound. You are ready, Captain Vorn, she said, her voice calm but carrying weight. This stage will test your understanding, your judgment, and the wisdom you have gained. You will see the consequences of your decisions not as symbols or projections, but as living realities. Are you prepared? He had survived challenges designed to test intellect and courage. But something in Lyra's tone told him that this next step would demand more than skill. It would demand insight. The walls melted into a brilliant light, and when his vision adjusted, he found himself standing on a high plateau overlooking a massive alien city. The structures were intricate, spiraling towers and flowing bridges of luminescent material, alive with color and motion. But the city was in chaos. Smoke curled from certain areas, and holographic citizens moved frantically, unsure where to go. "This is your final trial," Lyra said, appearing beside him. "This city represents a civilization on the brink. You must prevent its destruction." But it is not a simple matter of strategy. You will face choices that test ethics, intuition, and foresight. One mistake could have irreversible consequences. The threats were multiple. Some buildings teetered on unstable ground, others were at risk of collapse from unknown forces, and still others were under direct attack by natural phenomena that seemed beyond control. The holographic citizens cried for help, and Elias felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. He began by analyzing the immediate dangers. The unstable towers could fall at any moment, and the citizens nearby were unaware. Humans excelled at observation, he realized, noticing patterns others might miss. He projected paths for the citizens to safer areas and reinforced certain structures using the tools provided by the simulation interface. Lyra observed silently, her expression unreadable. Elias could sense her scrutiny. "Your first challenge is not merely to act," she said. "It is to understand the consequences. Each choice you make will affect not only survival but the future of this civilization." Elias directed citizens, moved resources, and improvised solutions when the simulated technology did not respond as expected. He realized that success depended not only on quick action, but also on thinking several steps ahead. At one point, a cluster of citizens was trapped on a tower that began to sway dangerously. There was no clear path to safety. Elias paused, considering his options. Humans often relied on both logic and intuition, he reminded himself. The situation was complex but not unsolvable. He extended a bridge of light to the tower, creating a path to safer ground. Simultaneously, he diverted a small energy flow to stabilize the structure temporarily. The citizens moved quickly, guided by his instructions. The tower did not collapse. Elias exhaled quietly, acknowledging the subtle power of human ingenuity. Lyra stepped closer. Few beings would have understood the combination of strategy and moral choice required here. Most would have saved the structures or the people, but not both. You see the balance. Humans often have to make choices that seem impossible, but we try to protect both life and what is valuable. It is what makes us resilient. Holographic citizens were panicked, calling for help. Elias realized that the trial was testing more than problem-solving. It was testing his ability to prioritize, to judge risks, and to act morally under extreme pressure. He moved quickly, coordinating responses across the city. Humans thrived in complex, chaotic environments, he reminded himself. Their adaptability and courage were unmatched. He encountered another challenge, a group of citizens trapped near the city's edge where the ground was beginning to shift. The simulation offered two tools, a mechanical evacuation system that could save some but not all, or a slower, manual method that might save everyone if timed perfectly. Elias considered both options carefully. Logic suggested using the evacuation system for efficiency. But humans often relied on morality as well as intellect. He chose the manual method, guiding citizens step by step with careful precision. It was riskier, but ultimately everyone survived. Lyra's smile was faint but approving. "You chose the path that considered life above efficiency. Many beings would have chosen otherwise. That is what separates humans from others in the galaxy. Courage with conscience, action with care." Every decision required judgment, foresight, and adaptability. At one point, he encountered a moral dilemma unlike any before. Two clusters of citizens were in immediate danger. He could save one group fully or split resources to aid both partially, risking partial harm to everyone. Elias paused, thinking deeply. Humans often excelled in uncertainty because they could weigh values, predict consequences, and act intuitively. He chose the second option, allocating resources and directing citizens with precision. The result was not perfect, but the losses were minimized. Some minor injuries occurred, but the majority were safe. The simulation paused briefly, highlighting his decision. Lyra's voice sounded close, warm, yet authoritative. "This choice shows wisdom, Captain Vorn. You understand compromise, morality, and the limits of control. You act with foresight and empathy, traits that are rare in the galaxy. You are proving why humans endure where others might fail." He realized that the challenge was not just about saving a city. It was about understanding complexity, human limitations, and the consequences of action. Humans often thrived in situations where others faltered because they could think creatively and act morally at the same time. Finally, the city's chaos began to settle. The disasters were controlled, the citizens were safe, and the structures remained standing. Elias felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had faced impossible odds, navigated moral dilemmas, and acted decisively under pressure. Humans, he realized, were resilient not only because of skill or strength, but because of their capacity for judgment, empathy, and adaptation. Lyra approached him fully this time, her form solid in the simulation. "You have passed the final challenge of this stage," she said. "You have demonstrated intellect, morality, creativity, and courage. You have made decisions that few beings could make and survived trials that would have defeated most civilizations. You are proving the value of your species, Captain Vorn. You believe in humans," he said quietly, his voice filled with both awe and confidence. Lyra smiled, a subtle, enigmatic smile that seemed to convey both admiration and curiosity. "It is not belief, it is recognition. You have shown qualities that endure, that adapt, that survive. You are capable of more than most beings in this galaxy. And you are only beginning to realize your potential. But you must understand that it will test more than intellect or morality. You will be challenged in ways that require trust, courage, and innovation. You are ready. Now we prepare for what comes next." The trial had tested him in every way imaginable, yet it had also shown him something vital. Humans were not simply another species in the galaxy. They were capable of extraordinary judgment, courage, and creativity. Even when facing civilizations far older, more advanced, or seemingly invincible, humans could act decisively and morally. As he looked at Lyra, he realized that her smile was not just approval, it was hope. She saw in humans something worth observing, worth testing, worth trusting. And Elias felt a surge of pride, knowing that he was proving the potential of his species not through words or claims, but through action. Hours, perhaps days, passed in silence. The chamber remained quiet, but Elias felt no fear. He felt anticipation. Humans thrived on challenges, on complexity, on trials that tested both mind and heart. And now, standing at the edge of the next stage, he was ready to show just how far that resilience could take him. Lyra's voice finally broke the quiet. "Captain Vorn, prepare yourself. The final trial is imminent. Your actions, choices, and judgments will determine not only the outcome of this test, but the future of what you are about to encounter. Humans are remarkable, Captain Vorn. You are about to demonstrate why." Each had shown him a truth about humans, their capacity to adapt, to reason, to act morally under pressure. That truth would guide him through the final challenge. And with that thought, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever Lyra had prepared. Humans had survived impossible odds before, and they would do so again. Not because of luck, not because of power, but because of their courage, their creativity, and their unwavering determination. The chamber began to shimmer once more, signaling the transition to the next stage. Elias felt excitement, resolve, and a quiet certainty. Humans would rise to this challenge, just as they always did. The chamber dissolved around Elias, replaced by the vastness of space. Stars shimmered in patterns unfamiliar to him, distant suns painting the void in shades of blue and gold. Before him floated a massive fleet of alien vessels, some sleek and silver, others dark and angular, moving with a precision that was terrifying. Elias immediately realized that this was no simulation. This was real, and the stakes had escalated far beyond anything he had faced before. Lyra appeared beside him, her expression grave. "These ships belong to a rogue faction," she said. "They seek to seize the archive of knowledge I guard. If they succeed, civilizations across multiple star systems will face destruction. Your task is clear. You must help stop them." He had faced simulations and crises, but this was a confrontation in real space with real consequences. "How do we stop them?" he asked. Lyra's eyes sparkled with determination. "You will lead the defense. My people can assist, but your ingenuity and human adaptability will be crucial. This is where your species excels, Captain Vorn." The rogue ships were numerous, but they moved predictably, as if relying on conventional tactics. Humans, he thought, often succeeded by doing the unexpected. He quickly formulated a plan considering not only firepower but mobility, strategy, and psychological advantage. "First," he said, "we divide them. We create confusion in their ranks. They expect coordinated attacks, but we will use unpredictability to our advantage. Ships from her fleet responded to her commands, but it was Elias who suggested unorthodox maneuvers, weaving formations that no alien commander would anticipate, feints that drew enemy ships into traps, and simultaneous attacks on multiple fronts that required precision timing. The battle began. Laser fire streaked across space, cutting through darkness with sudden, brilliant flashes. Explosions rocked the rogue fleet as Elias' strategies took effect. Alien captains were forced to adjust, caught off guard by maneuvers that seemed impossible. The human ability to improvise, to think creatively in real time, was proving decisive. Lyra watched closely, adjusting her own fleet in response, but she relied on Elias' instincts in critical moments. "You see opportunities where others see obstacles," she said. "That is human ingenuity at work." An enemy squadron attempted to flank them, aiming for the Archive's protective ships. Elias spotted the move instantly. "Divert fire to intercept, but leave openings to lure them into the gravity field of the nearby asteroid cluster," he commanded. The plan worked perfectly. The rogue ships were caught in the gravitational pull, disoriented and vulnerable. Lyra nodded approvingly. Humans anticipate, adapt, and exploit. Few species understand the value of unpredictability combined with strategy. Humans, he realized, often thrived against such rigid opponents because they could improvise in ways that defied expectation. He coordinated a series of feints, drawing enemy ships into traps and striking at their weak points. Each maneuver showcased the human ability to think creatively under stress, blending rapid calculation with instinctive judgment. The rogue fleet faltered, confusion spreading among their ranks. Amid the chaos, one massive enemy vessel broke through the defensive lines, targeting the Archive's central ship. Elias acted immediately. "Engage the auxiliary units. Create a diversion while we disable its propulsion," he shouted. Lyra responded, sending a surge of energy to shield the Archive while Elias' plan unfolded. He guided smaller attack ships in coordinated strikes, exploiting vulnerabilities in the massive vessel's design. With precise timing, they disabled its engines, rendering it immobile and forcing surrender. The remaining rogue ships hesitated, seeing their flagship incapacitated. Elias seized the opportunity. "Press the advantage. Confuse them further and prevent regrouping. Captain Vorn, your leadership, creativity, and moral judgment have saved countless lives today. You have demonstrated why humans are capable of extraordinary feats. But humans have a way of seeing solutions that others might overlook." The rogue faction had been defeated, the Archive remained secure, and the civilizations depending on its knowledge were safe. Elias looked out at the field of stars, feeling the weight of what had been accomplished. Humans had not merely survived, they had played a decisive role in preserving life and knowledge. Lyra extended her hand, a gesture of both respect and acknowledgement. "Captain Vorn, this victory is a testament to your species. You have proven that humans, though young in the galaxy, are capable of leadership and ingenuity that can rival even the most advanced civilizations. I only hope we continue to rise to challenges like this." Their ability to adapt, to improvise, and to act with both intelligence and morality gave them an edge that even advanced species could not ignore. Today, he had proven that edge in action. The chamber shimmered once more, signaling the end of this stage. Elias felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The real trials had been the simulations, but this confrontation in space had tested his ability to apply human qualities to unpredictable, high-stakes situations. He had succeeded, and in doing so, demonstrated the value of his species. Lyra's voice echoed as the chamber returned to its neutral, metallic state. "Prepare yourself, Captain Vorn. The final trial is near. It will test not only intellect, morality, and courage, but the bonds you form and the decisions you make when lives depend on trust. Humans thrive not just individually, but collectively. You will see why." Each stage had tested a different aspect of humanity: intellect, intuition, empathy, courage, and adaptability. He understood now why Lyra had chosen humans for this process. They were capable of remarkable feats when challenged. He allowed himself a moment to breathe, to reflect on the journey so far. The chamber had been a crucible, refining not just his skills, but his understanding of what humans could accomplish. And now, on the edge of the final trial, he felt a quiet confidence. Humans thrived on challenge, on complexity, and on the unknown. They faced obstacles not just with strength or knowledge, but with imagination, morality, and determination. Lyra approached, her presence calm and commanding. Rest if you can, Captain Vorn. The final stage will require every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of courage you possess. Humans endure and thrive where others falter. You will show why. He thought of the battles he had faced, the decisions he had made, and the lives he had influenced, even in simulation. Each moment reinforced a truth about humans. They could rise to challenges that others deemed impossible, and in doing so, they could change the course of events in ways no one predicted. When he opened his eyes, he felt ready. The final trial awaited, a challenge that would test not only his abilities but the very essence of what it meant to be human. And he knew, deep in his heart, that humans would rise just as they always had, facing the unknown with courage, creativity, and determination. The chamber was quiet again, but this silence felt different. It was not tense or uncertain. It felt final. Elias stood near the center, hands relaxed at his sides, breathing slow and steady. He had faced puzzles, disasters, moral choices, and real battle. Now there was no simulation waiting, no alarms, no sudden shifts in the walls. Only Lyra stood before him, calm and thoughtful, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the chamber. "You have reached the end of the trials," she said. "But the final choice is not mine to make. It is yours." Elias felt small standing before it, not because it was overwhelming, but because it carried the weight of countless lives and civilizations. "This is the archive," Lyra said. "It holds knowledge gathered over millions of cycles, the rise and fall of civilizations, their mistakes, their triumphs, their endings. You said many wanted this. A species not shaped by our history. We don't always choose the right path. Or you may walk away, leaving it untouched. True. There's a third choice. You propose responsibility instead of ownership." The archive responded, adjusting almost as if it were listening. "The archive accepts your proposal," Lyra said quietly. "It recognizes intent, not authority." "Argue." The chamber began to change again, but gently this time. The intense glow softened, becoming warm and welcoming, the heavy sense of judgment lifted. Lyra walked toward the door that had once been locked, the same door where this journey had begun. She placed her hand on it. "You remember this moment," she said. "I do," Elias replied. "I thought I was being trapped." "You were being invited. This place is no longer closed to you." Humans did not succeed because they were the strongest or smartest. They succeeded because they adapted, because they cared, because they refused to stop learning even after failure. At the end of the corridor, Elias turned back. Lyra was still there, watching. "Thank you," he said. She inclined her head. "No, Captain Vorn, thank your species. You reminded the galaxy that youth does not mean weakness. You disappeared for hours. What happened?" And across the galaxy, a door once locked would remain open, not because of force, not because of fear, but because a human had chosen wisdom over power. The universe had underestimated humans for a long time. It would not make that mistake again.